Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is the Wake Up on the show. Muslim Americans in Congress, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar are really changing everything on the way the party talks about Israel and Palestinian issues. Very exciting and very interesting stuff there. And an update on some of Donald Trump's many investigations. That's on the show today. All right, so the first Muslim American women in Congress are forcing the Democratic Party to confront a growing call from some of their younger members to take a more progressive position on Middle Eastern politics, especially on the creation of a Palestinian state. And again, this is something that there has been at least one, there's just been one position on in Washington for the entirety of like many years now. And one of them debuted. One of the people pushing for this debuted yesterday at her first hearing as a member on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, urging lawmakers to hold Saudi Arabia to the same standards on human rights as other countries. Ilhan Omar, of Minnesota, 35, and a Somali refugee, sought the big platform because of her unique background and experiences. She's intent on showing and showcasing human rights abuses around the world and how to counteract them in the Trump era. But her colleagues are right now focusing on something else. Omar's criticisms of Israel and some of her controversial tweets and her support of the movement to boycott, divest, and sanction the country over the occupation of its West Bank. The GOP has seized on comments by Omar and Representative Rashida Tlaib, as well as other Muslim American women elected in 2018 as anti-Israel and even anti-Semitic. And I mean, one of those charges, I think is undisputable. They both are more anti-Israel than the average congressman, because the average congressman has to come in there, get like literally sworn in by AIPAC, and like literally, they have to pledge their, as soon as they get in the door, they have to pretty much pledge their undying allegiance to Israel. That's just the way it works. I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of frustrating that we don't get to hear any position other than it's always Israel all the time. But there is a lot of anti-Semitism. No doubt, anti-Semitic attacks are on the rise. Like, we all know it. We've seen it time and time again. And the thing is that there really needs to be an important amount of attention put on this situation. But I think there also needs to be an important amount of attention put on the situation unfolding right now in Gaza and the West Bank. That is where a whole host of people, innocent people, obviously every country has bad people in it. I think we can all know that. Hamas was democratically elected. It was pushed into violence by the U.S., when it was attacked by the U.S. because it was democratically elected. The U.S. attacked the state of Gaza and organized a coup there, in which Hamas pretty easily fought back against. But that's what forced them. For a little bit of those people who need a little bit of update on their history. But yeah, that's kind of what forced Hamas into becoming a terrorist group. But there is that element to it that you really need to open. A lot of people in Washington need to at least open their minds to at least begin to consider, because a lot of times, there has been multiple instances where there has been some accusations of pretty bad anti-Semitism on places the far left, but a place where real anti-Semitism, not just anti-Israeli comments, but real anti-Semitism is the right. Obviously, we've seen that with Steve King. We've seen that with neo-Nazi protesters that Trump failed to condemn, and we've seen that with some of the actions, some of the comments that Trump's made. And it's just a large portion of his supporters have been attacked, have attacked Jews and people of Israel in very similar ways. Are just it's really not been pretty. So there's that to consider, and hopefully these two are able to push the Senate and the House to open their minds a little bit. Just having new voices in there like AOC and those two on some issues are so helpful. All right. On Wednesday, the Senate passed a Middle East bill rebuking President Trump's withdrawal of troops from Syria and Afghanistan, along with a controversial message to allow states and local governments to push corporations that boycott, divest, or sanction Israel. The bill passed with an overwhelming margin, but the majority of Democratic senators voting a presidential run actually voted against it, showing where the future of the Democratic Party is going, and that's, of course, with the exception of Amy Klobuchar, who's expected to make a big announcement on Sunday. We don't know what that's going to be yet. I think this shows that the old playbook of American politics is being rewritten. Jeremy Ben-Ami, the president of J Street, a progressive group that supports a two-state solution, told the Washington Post, in prior campaign cycles, if the government of Israel and AIPAC had gotten behind a bill like that, would have earned wall-to-wall support from presidential candidates from the Democratic Party. That's very true. But here, all the major presidential candidates but one voted against it, and that's a major change. Ben-Ami added that J Street had been meeting with 2020 Democratic candidates to help them find ways to support both Israel, security measures, and Palestinian rights. There will be discussions about what we're doing in Saudi Arabia with regards to Yemen. Youssef Mayar, the executive director of the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, told us, so how do we reconcile that with our long-standing position with Israel, given the human rights crisis? It could be very hard for Canada in 2020 to go before the base and say we shouldn't change anything with our relationship with Israel, and we will have to keep looking the other way as with Palestinian territories, with regards to Palestinian territories. I don't think that's going to fly, he added. I really do think this is very interesting because it shows you that not all of the people who are associated with Israel are right-wingers like Benjamin Netanyahu. The position that Benjamin Netanyahu holds does not represent the large majority of the people. So I think that's a very important thing to take in. So now that we all remember that, we can move on. So yeah, Cheryl Gay Stolberg eliminated the division last week through her reporting of a transition of Tlaib and Omar as groundbreaking symbols of diversity to the most embattled members of the Democratic House majority. So when Omar was first named to the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Representative Elliot Engel of New York told her privately he would not allow some of her particularly hurtful remarks to be swept under the rug. Omar's camp sought to tamp down on tensions. The tensions between freshman congresswoman and Omar, and said that Republicans have seized on growing range of views on Israel for political purposes, saying, as someone who has firsthand seen the havoc wreaked by war, I'm looking forward to serve on the committees responsible for overseeing our country's actions abroad. Everything we do as a committee and as a country should be guided to making a more peaceful and just world, and upholding human rights globally. There are several ways we can do that immediately. We can investigate how foreign governments and their lobbyists have violated our laws. We can rein in arms sales to human rights abusers like Saudi Arabia, and we can use the committee's human rights jurisdiction to hold the president accountable for deaths in detention centers under his watch. So yeah, this is very, very interesting, and she's bringing up some very interesting priorities beyond her personal opinions on Israel, which I'm sure she would like to see addressed at some point, but doesn't want to get in the way of the overall discussions and negotiations and all that stuff. So, yeah, one of the activists for Palestinian rights pointed to Omar's Twitter spat with Lee Zeldin, who was Jewish last week, and posted a hateful and anti-Semitic voicemail he received in which he tagged Omar for pretty much no reason other than that she had to state her opinion about possibly believing in a two-state solution for Palestine. Munayer said that she served as an example of weaponizing anti-Semitism to advance Islamophobia. One of the things happening right now is an effort to piggyback on real racism and sexism that exist in our country and to use that not just to define Ilhan and Rashida by association, define the issues they stand for as marginal and extreme. So that is very, very good point there. All right, so now we turn from that to take a little bit of broader scope to the investigations going on. So I may not be caught up on all this, but apparently it started at this Russia House, a DuPont Circle restaurant in Washington, D.C., that's known for vodka and caviar. Interesting. So Rosalind Helderman and Tom Hamburger of the Washington Post, literally his name is Tom Hamburger, write a fresh report out literally this morning that the D.C. restaurant was where Sergei Milan, a Belarusian-born businessman and one-time Trump foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, got together. After their mandate, Milian and the young aide stayed in touch. So, their interactions between the two men, the extent of which had not been reported previously, show how Milian, a self-described real estate developer who served as an unwitting source of information for former British spy Christopher Steele, was in closer proximity to the Trump world than previously known, Haldeman and Hamburger report. So, yeah, that is all a little bit of a new wrinkle that came out in the Russia probe recently. And one day now, after Trump told the Democrats that they needed to choose between making partisan oversight investigations and making deals, Representative Adam Schiff announced his House Intelligence Panel is reopening its probe into whether the president or his associates had improper ties with Russia during the 2016 campaign. Least surprising thing ever. Adam Schiff has been really on these investigations from the start, pretty much appearing on a Trump every single night to just talk about Russia all the time. And so, yeah, again, another investigation, see where it goes. Whatever. So, yeah, Schiff announced a 5-point plan to examine credible reports of money laundering and financial compromise involving the business of the president and those closest around him, according to Karun Demirjian. Probably wrong, sorry. He alleged the GOP-led panel overlooked key evidence when it dug into Russia's interference in the last Congress. The president's actions and posture towards Russia during the campaign transition and administration have only heightened fears of foreign financial or other leverage of President Trump and underscore the over President Trump fears of possible foreign financial or other leverage of President Trump, and underscore the need to determine whether he or those in his administration has acted in service of foreign interests since taking office. Trump response to that claim of him possibly being having foreign financial or other leverage against him, saying, under what basis would he do that? He has no basis to do that to the president of the Fresh probe. No other politician has to go through that. It's called presidential harassment, and it's unfortunate. It really does hurt our country. I literally don't think anyone's being hurt by some investigation that no one cares about. So, I think that's the thing he needs to realize. Just let it play its course. It's gone on for a very long time. People are not following it every day like they used to, and just don't do anything stupid. It's pretty much that simple. So, yeah, if I were Trump's PR guy, I'd just be like, yeah, chill. No one cares about this. Like, because I really don't think they do. Like, it's getting to a point where they've done it for so long, they've failed to come with anything that obvious, that in the world that we live in today, where no one really has a good attention span, like, it's just pretty much all gone away. Yeah, so that's pretty much the facts about that. So, yeah, it would be interesting for some of them to get that and maybe understand a little bit better. But still, that seems to be just about it. The bigger picture is Trump is lashing out his Democratic investigations on the Hill as they start in earnest. With Thursday hearings scheduled on presidential tax returns and family separations at the Mexican border, two much more interesting issues, in my opinion. In a Friday session to question acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, the lights are about to shine brightly on a president who has until now faced little examination from a Republican Congress. So that's going to be interesting. But they are going to do their homework first, that's for sure, as Elijah Cummings confirmed yesterday. So, yeah. Finally, a tweet here, very, very interesting here from Adam Schiff. Trump says first about Adam Schiff, never heard of him. And then Congressman Little Adam Shit, as he liked to call them. Yeah. All right. We're going to take a trip now briefly outside the Beltway to talk about Virginia. The saga of who will replace Ralph Northam as Virginia governor, presuming the Democrat decides to resign at some point after apologizing, then denying he appeared in a racist image in his 1984 medical school yearbook. The possibility emerged yesterday of Northam's replacement could somehow end up being a Republican. House Republican Speaker Kirk Cox, who ended up in his post because of a coin toss. Literally because of a coin toss. Cox is third line of governorship and would assume the state's job if Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax isn't disqualified by allegations of sexual assault by